Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie.
You know, that first headline could be, in my specialty, personal injury lawyers, I don't want a contentious headline. I don't want something funny. Something very serious has happened. Somebody's been in a car accident. They've lost a loved one. So we have to take that very seriously, and we have to be empathetic to those people. So our headlines, our first initial headline that's above the fold, needs to represent that. So you've got to be really careful, because I see some people, they're in a niche where that the funny just doesn't work. It just makes you come off as callous. So.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, because I've been trying to create that swipe file.
Yeah.
And so one of our coaches sent me like the top 100 headlines of all time.
Uh-huh.
And I hadn't even thought about, you really have to be able to file those away industry specific, or even activity specific. Because something that might work for an online summit might not work for a mastermind, or, for something else, even within the same industry.
Sure.
So being able to differentiate between what is most effective when would be a pretty huge talent.
Yeah. We hear a lot about know your audience, right? I'm sure all the books you read say, know your audience, know your audience, know your audience. And that's a big part of that. That's why you have to know your audience,
And that can be really hard.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So we've recently done the whole, who is your audience? Who's, your ideal avatar, and so we were told to pick 3. And because I couldn't create someone on my own, I actually picked out 3 people I knew.
Nice. Okay.
And I used them as the 3 types of people I think are in our audience, because it's tough.
Yeah.
It's really, because you think who your audience is. But I think what happens is most people assume their audience is like them. Mm. And that's not always the case. Often It's not the case.
Yep.
So while I believe that there are people in our audience that are like us, like me and my husband, I believe that the majority of people in our audience are like the 3 people that I identified when we were creating our avatars. Because
That's great to recognize that you were able to recognize that. Yeah.
It was scary though, because I know myself. I don't know other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what they buy at the grocery store. And
a lot of times too, and this is something I recognize as a teacher, is that when I'm thinking about what's going on in the home life of my students, or in the home life of my audience members, where did they start out? Are they in the same place as me? Mm-hmm. Or are they having to choose between prescriptions and groceries? And so being able to take a step back and thinking, wait a second, what's going on with this group financially? Do they have $50,000 to invest, or is $500 into a fund going to be pushing it? Yeah. And to be able to know those things about your audience, and just realize that you shouldn't push yourself and what you know about yourself onto your audience. And that was probably my biggest realization in the last month. As I've been reading more and more copy, is just that quit trying to project your ideas and your beliefs into your audience, because most likely your audience is not like you.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, but it's hard. It's hard to think that, because you think everybody wants to hear what you think is cool. And I kind of do it. I'm like, well, I want to hear about how to optimize YouTube, because I think that's cool and that's what I need.
Sure.
Well, how many people in my audience need that? Hopefully some.
Hopefully.
Because I believe there are people like my husband and I in our audience.
Sure.
And they will benefit greatly from this. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when I think about other portions of the audience, are they going to think this is cool and watch it because they think it's cool?
Yeah.
So but recognizing that it's going to hit different segments of our audience differently. Mm-hmm. I think that's been a huge step forward for us as well. So if maybe people are watching this, if they don't get anything else, they get that fact that we recognize that it hits everybody differently, and we don't think it's going to hit everybody the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
so we know y'all are all different.
That's right. I think for real estate professionals, though, YouTube can be a great tool, because I'm sure you've seen in specific searches where a video will pop up in the search results. So having that diversity and having a website and having a social media and having a YouTube and a LinkedIn and all that diversity can make all of that appear. And hit those different people. Like you said, some people are video watchers and some are readers and some are Facebookers, and, you know, all of that different
So
stuff.
one of the neatest things I saw was talking about like a sales video, like a 30, 45-second sales video, and how not everybody can watch a video where they are.
Yeah.
And so to take the words from the video and like basically copy and paste those underneath it.
Yep.
So that people have the option, they can watch the video or they can read it. But
Right.
either way, they get them both, or even if it's in closed captioning, to still have it there so that even if the sound's off, the video still sells the product or still tells the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's services out there that will transcribe those videos for you. I transcribe your video and I go, oh my God, what about a podcast like this where it could be an hour and a half, 2 hours long? Like I'm supposed to copy all of everything. Oh my goodness. Services out there that help with that. So that's not as scary a prospect as it seems on the surface a little.
Yeah, it can be kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I try to slow down. I usually talk really fast.
Yeah.
And so as I get excited, I talk faster and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm much the same.
Yeah. The auto captioners, I'll read them sometimes on a video I've done. I'm like, that's not what I said.
It's not even close.
But as I look at it, I'm like, but I understand why they would think that was what I said. So, but it can be kind of crazy. First off, I've got to be honest. Okay. I had to look up what GMB was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. See, sometimes
know.
I forget. I know my audience, right?
But hey, I figured it out. It wasn't a total loss, and I guess I have some technical savvy.
There you go.
Not a whole bunch. But so I looked up GMB. It is Google My Business. And that works primarily for local businesses, or can that be used across a larger geographic area?
So there are some people who it's really for local businesses. There's some people that claim that they can get a GMB listing, a Google My Business listing across state lines and things like that. I've never seen that done reliably. But
they geolocate, right?
Correct. Yeah. So Google My Business, for those that don't know, is that those maps listings that, when you do a Google search, you get 3 sort of big, and it shows you website and phone number and address and all of that. Those are Google My Business listings, and they're primarily for local businesses. For say a national business, say e-commerce, and they sell supplements, I would say you probably don't want a Google My Business listing, because when you activate one of those, you're telling Google, I'm a local business. I'm relevant to this local area. And in an e-commerce store, say someone that sells supplements online, we wouldn't want to constrain them to the area of their headquarters or whatever. We want to tell Google that they're a national brand. So yes, GMB is primarily for local businesses.
So if someone were investing in real estate as like one arm of their business, and then that person was also a real estate agent, then they could focus on the Google My Business for their agency.
Right.
And get some rankings there. And then with their other parts, they could do the YouTube or do the website or do the podcast and work it from a different angle. That way they're everywhere at one time.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's exactly how I would work it.
Yeah, I was, that was one of those things I picked up off of Grant Cardone. Which I know he's caught some serious flack. He's still a brainiac, and he's still an amazing salesman. I mean, he's on it. And one of my favorite parts is when he talks about, just being everywhere at once. And he talks about people coming to him being like, how are you everywhere? And he just talked about how, I was on the TV, I was on the radio, I was on this, I was on that. And you can do that with technology. And I mean, you usually have to enlist the help of others, but you can be everywhere at once. Yeah. And it's really, really awesome.
It is. It's a very connected world that we're in, which is a double-edged sword, right? Sometimes that can create so much stress. hearing about all these things that we wouldn't have heard about 50 years ago. It can exacerbate that situation. But in a situation like Grant Cardone's, or maybe a mortgage company that wants to be all over, it's such a great thing to have all of these options available to them. Because you say, Grant Cardone says, oh, I was on the radio, I was on the TV. I never saw him on radio and TV. If he'd only been on radio and TV, I never would have known he would have existed. I saw him on social media and YouTube, where I'm sure other people never saw him. So being in that everywhere at once is really, really important these days.
I know we hired a company because I don't even have like Instagram.
Okay.
I don't know anything about Instagram.
Yeah.
So people watching this are gonna be like, well, I know you have an account because I've seen you post on it. I might have gotten some help.
Don't tell anybody.
But there's companies out there that will do that. So
Yeah.
if you're watching this and you're like, how do I do Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, and how do I do all those? There are companies out there that will help you.
That's right.
And like personally, my desire is to eventually get to where I know enough about the different platforms that I can post on them. But I know Twitter has reduced characters because I had to have Twitter as a teacher.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I know anything about that. So I know that
right.
What you can post on Twitter looks different from what you can post on Facebook.
Right.
And those are really the only two social platforms that I'm really fairly good with.
Okay.
LinkedIn, I have a LinkedIn account.
Sure. Yeah. I think you and most people probably.
Oh, well, I have friends that they use LinkedIn to create like their investor lists. Yeah. And to create their lead lists. Yeah. And I hear them talk about it and I'm like, what? Because they talk about in LinkedIn, like you can sort the people that you're wanting to reach out to, and there's not as many limits. Right. I don't you may be way more familiar with that than I am, because I'm like, I don't know.
LinkedIn's not really my specialty. I do know that the audience on LinkedIn tends to be more business oriented. They tend to be business owners and higher up in the business sort of caste system, for lack of a better word. You're not going to find a lot of probably drive-through workers on LinkedIn. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not really the platform for them. You're going to find those people more over on Twitter and Snapchat and things like that. So for somebody who might be looking for a business professional type client and that's their avatar, LinkedIn is a really, really good place to be.
When people are collecting metrics for and this is all things I've learned from people that I've talked to, this stuff makes very little sense to me. Yeah. But evidently there's metrics that have like prime times to post to different social medias. Yep. And evidently LinkedIn, like the prime time to post things on LinkedIn is like between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m.
Right.
And I was like, what?
It's so early.
But it makes sense when you think about it, as that's more of your business people. It's I guess it's just a different, again, for lack of a better word, a different caliber of business person.
Sure. Just a different area of business. Those are the people that have 9-to-5 jobs. So they're up early and they're looking at their social media before work. So that's why that 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. slot. And then the second most popular for LinkedIn is 5 to 8 p.m. as well. So again, that's their home for dinner. They're, with their family, things like that.
I don't know if this is something but so LinkedIn doesn't have the same limits as Facebook, because Facebook, you top out at 5,000. But I've heard that like with LinkedIn, I don't know if there's not limits or the limit is much larger.
Yeah, social media is not really my my area of expertise anymore. I used to do social media back when LinkedIn had a 500 connect limit. Early days, right? I think it was 500 or 1,000 connections, something like that. But so I social media was, I'm not that guy.
Well, then you're making me feel better because I thought that I was old, but
yeah.
I'm just messing. Um,
I know.
all right. So
I do got a little bit of gray in my beard, so maybe that dates me a
yeah,
little
well,
more.
if you looked past the purple, you could see a ton of green in it. So yeah, well, we won't go there. So a friend of mine, because we live in a pretty small town, a
Mhm.
friend of mine was saying that another kind of hack you can use is to use an address in a bigger metropolitan area. Do you know
For
about that?
yes, yes, and that's a complicated one.
Oh,
So that depends on what you're. If you're going to do it for just like your website, then fine. You could use a vacant lot if you want. If you're going to do it for Google My Business and for your Maps location, that's a much different story, because what happens when you build one of these GMB listings for the first time is that they want you to verify that you're at the address you say you're at, for that very reason, for the people that live in small towns and try to utilize those larger metros. So they'll send a postcard to that address, and then so what some people will do is they'll get friends. They'll say, well, I got a business owner that's in that high tower downtown, and that's where I want to be, so they'll send it there, but then they're putting both businesses in danger, because there's a filter, a location filter. If two businesses are at the same address in the same niche, then Google has to choose between one of them, because it's got this diversity mission. They want to show you diverse search results, and they don't want to show two businesses in the same building. So one of you is going to get filtered out.
so how would that work for like, what are they called?
Shared office spaces?
Yes, I'm like, what is that called? Yes,
Like
shared
Da
office spaces.
Vinci and Regis and all of those, right? WeWork and all of those. So those
Yeah.
are actually blacklisted by Google, and they will not verify an address that's at a known shared office location or shared workspace, such as Regis and stuff. Sometimes you'll get away with it. Every once in a while, one will sneak through, but eventually Google will catch on to it, and they'll suspend that listing.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we
That,
tell our clients that we won't, if we have a prospect come to us and say, hey, I need help with my local rankings. We ask what's the address, and the first thing we do is Google that address, because Google recognizes that it's a Regis or a Da Vinci or WeWork or whatever you have in your area. And if they have one of those, we go, you have to get a new office, or we can't help you. We simply will turn you away. And there's really not for any reason that I can't. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just that I can't do it. No matter how much money you give me, or how much time and resources you give me, Google just simply doesn't allow it. So,
wow. Well,
yeah.
I had heard that was true of like the UPS boxes.
PO boxes are definitely flagged. Yes, they've been flagged for a long time. Regis is more of in the last year and a half or 2 years, that they
Because I
started
mean, I
getting
asked my
flagged.
friend, I was like, so why couldn't I just get a UPS box? It's like, oh no, UPS, they flagged UPS.
Yep.
And so then I was like trying to think of, so we came from Lubbock, Texas, and there was this little tea shop boutique that had these antique, cute little PO boxes on one side of their business, and you could have your mail sent there.
Yep.
And so I don't know if they were listed as anything other than you could send your mail there.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't.
here in Vegas, and I know in a lot of other cities too, there are PO boxes that double. They don't. It's not 123 Main Street PO Box 485 or whatever. They have real addresses, and so sometimes if Google hasn't flagged that system yet, you can get through and get a listing in a PO box like that. And then in very small towns where there's no mail service and PO boxes are the only option, you actually have to contact Google support, Google My Business support, and work with them. Yeah, which is not an easy task, but you have to work with them to prove that you have no mail service and so on and so forth. But what Google's trying to show with the Google My Business listing is a business that you can go in and visit. That's the whole point. Where do I need to go? That's why it's on Maps. When I go searching for something, where do I need to go to engage with this business? Well, I can't engage with them at a PO box. So if they're not coming to me, if it's a plumber or something, they come to me, I don't have to go to their business. So Google might let you get away with a little more. Same thing, real estate agent, you still won't get a Regis or a PO box through, but they might not check as hard. But somewhere I need to go, I'm not simply not gonna be able to get away with that.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense though, because they want to, Google wants to be known for providing real results
Yep.
with real people, with real businesses that you can actually use what you're finding. Because if they don't produce, if you search for something and they don't produce a usable result, then people are going to quit using Google and they're going to find something else.
And they lose ad revenue and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.